These are the 20 most powerful Shikigami in Jujutsu Kaisen, and they're so broken that even the strongest sorcerers, like Gojo Satoru, have struggled against them. Take for example the Death Swarm, a Shikigami that can attack without being detected until it hits its target. Or consider Judgment, who possesses a powerful weapon capable of killing any target. Even Sukuna almost died from a single blow. And then there's the god tier Shikigami that no one has been able to control, Mahoraga of the 10 Shadows, who is so powerful that even Sukuna had to rely on Mahoraga's adaptability to overcome Gojo's limitless technique. Look at this. Gojo with his 6 eyes was beaten by Shikigami with no eyes. Not so limitless after all, I guess. Now, let's start with the Shikigami that we saw way back in the Gojo past arc. When Geto split from Gojo and Kuroi, he faced an old curse user who could summon Shikigami. And unlike Megumi, who uses a hand sign to summon his Shikigami, this old man used some sort of a scroll. However, it was never explained what this old man's Shikigami were called or what they could do. Yet, according to the fandom gods, these Shikigami were better at blocking attacks than actively fighting. That's why I've ranked them at the bottom of the list, since they're pretty basic compared to the Shikigami I'll show you later. Next up, Kogan. This Shikigami actually reminds me of Kakuna in Pokemon, but instead of being a pupa, Kogan is a small Shikigami with a cylindrical body and a skull-like head and wings. Each Kogan rocks a different black tail and other dope features like unique eye shapes or facial hair. They can talk and each has its own unique personality. Think of Kogan as the JJK version of Siri because in the calling game each player gets a Kogan, which acts as their main contact for the game. But unlike Siri, who tells you the weather when you ask it to Google a question, Kogan clearly explains the rules, updates players on their points, and confirms new participants when they step into a barrier colony. Players can also use their Kogan to chat with the game master about new rules. Kogan is like the main guide for the calling game. And what's interesting is, it changes its body. Just like in chapter 158, when Megumi and Yuji check the other player's information, Kogan changes its shape to show other player details on command. Although Kogan is super useful, it does not possess any power like other Shikigami, like Garuda or Judgment, that I'm going to tell you about soon. Now we have a Shikigami from the 10 Shadows technique, a rabbit escape. By making a shadow puppet that looks like a rabbit's head, the user can summon a huge swarm of rabbit Shikigami. Rabbit escape is weak, and it's not used for attacking. That's why I've put this Shikigami early on this list. However, that doesn't mean it's useless. What's interesting is, unlike other Shikigami, Rabbit Escape is a special one because no matter how many you kill, more of these Shikigami will appear. Unless you take out the rabbit with the specific symbol, because destroying this one means they all go down. Since Rabbit Escape can show up in large numbers, its main job is to distract. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd easily get sidetracked when there's a bunch of rabbits hopping around. Plus, it's very useful, especially for escape. It can also be used as a combo with other Shikigami. For example, Sukuna used Rabbit Escape to corner Yoruzu, and while she was all distracted, he dropped Max Elephant on her to crush her. Actually, Megumi pulled off the same move back in Shibuya. Next, Toad or Gama. The 10 Shadows user can summon a Toad Shikigami by forming a shadow puppet with their hands that looks like a toad. Gama's like the Toad from Naruto. No, I'm just kidding. Just like Rabbit Escape, this Shikigami is also perfect for supporting its summoner. Like for example, Megumi used the Toad's tongue to quickly yank Nobara out of trouble, and even carried her to safety in its mouth. While it's definitely not the strongest of the 10 Shadows, the Toad comes in handy during fights. Its tongue can grab enemies and fling them around pretty hard. Like that time it snagged Jiro Awasaka with its tongue and slammed him against a walkway. Now in Shibuya, when Megumi was fighting his dad, Megumi used Toad right after distracting Toji with a bunch of rabbit Shikigami. Right when Megumi was almost hit by a swift attack, the Toad's tongue whipped out and pulled him to safety. There are also fusions of Shikigami, like the whale's Unknown Abyss. This Shikigami is a fusion of both New and Toad. These winged toads assist Megumi in battle by flying with increased agility, using their tongues to restrain opponents or catching projectiles. While these fused toads are weaker than New and Toad, they can be destroyed without any consequences, meaning they can be summoned as long as New and Toad are still alive. The whale's Unknown Abyss might be a fusion of 2 Shikigami, but it is actually weaker compared to Divine Dog Totality, and especially Merge Beast Agito, which I'll explain soon in the video as well. Next, Junpei Yoshino's Moondrags. This jellyfish-like Shikigami may not be the most powerful Shikigami, but it has a couple of interesting tricks. First off, it can use its tentacles in creative ways, mainly by reshaping them into stingers that deliver a tricky poison during combat. While this poison might not be fatal to Yuji, all thanks to Sukuna, it could still be deadly for non-sorcerers because it can cause a burning spotted rash that mimics the scar on Junpei's forehead, which he received when he was bullied in school. And aside from its offensive capabilities, Moondrags also serves as a defensive role. It can absorb substantial impacts such as bracing Junpei's fall from several stories high, or soaking up the heavy punches from strong opponents like Yuji. But imagine, just how powerful do you think this Shikigami could have become if Junpei didn't die? Now, fast forward to the Culling Games, we have Dhruv Lakdawala. Remember him? The guy who didn't get breakfast and missed a few other meals. Sadly, he doesn't look like Chris Hemsworth, but he was a legit powerful sorcerer who had two types of independent Shikigami. The first one was like an overgrown hamster on steroids, and the second, those were probably the creepy flying critters seen in the background. It was also explained in chapter 173 that Dhruv was a veteran in his second incarnation. He once single-handedly conquered the archipelago in the Civil War of Wa. Plus, during the Culling Games, he scored over 90 points. By the way, just in case you forgot, one of the rules of the Culling Games is that players score points by killing other players or sorcerers. Sorcerers are worth 5 points, while non-sorcerers are worth 1 point. This means that during the Culling Games, Dhruv killed multiple sorcerers and civilians with his Shikigami. And despite all this, Yuta easily killed him. Now, Cuters, since I've mentioned Yuta, I've been thinking, is Rika a cursed spirit or a Shikigami? I mean, I really wanted to add her to this list, but it's super confusing to figure out what exactly Rika is. If you guys remember in JJK 0, Rika was a special grade vengeful cursed spirit, but when her soul was released, she left behind part of her feelings and intentions in Rika 2.0. This means that the Rika Yuta can currently summon is just a copy or a remnant of the original. I know Rika is also known as the Queen of Curses, but does she still deserve that title if the OG Rika is gone? And what exactly is the current Rika? A cursed spirit or a Shikigami? Comment what you think. Now back to the 10 Shadows technique, we have the Divine Dogs. The Divine Dogs are twin wolf Shikigami, one white and the other black. They are the first Shikigami a user receives when they inherit the 10 Shadows technique. To summon the Divine Dogs, the user creates a shadow puppet of a dog's head by clasping their hands together. The user can choose to summon either just one or both wolves at a time. These Divine Dogs are perfect for killing curses and are very useful for tracking scents. When the white dog was killed by a finger bearer, it became a problem because once a Shikigami is destroyed, it cannot be summoned again. However, that also became an advantage because the powers of a destroyed Shikigami can be passed on to other Shikigami, making them much stronger. This is what happened to the two wolves, which became the Divine Dog Totality, and I'll explain that in a moment. Next up, Nue. Nue is a huge owl-like beast with a small skull mask, and it's one of the most commonly used Shikigami from the 10 Shadows. You can summon Nue by creating a shadow puppet that looks like wings or a bird. Nue typically serves as a foundation for combination attacks that Megumi employs during battles. Nue's wide range of abilities has proven effective not just in combat, but also in supporting its user. It can scout areas and provide quick transportation. However, its most fascinating feature is its wings. Anyone hit by Nue's feathers should brace themselves for the shock of their lives, because these purple sparks will keep them paralyzed. Megumi's version might seem useful, but man, Nue became much more terrifying. I mean, much more, when Sukuna summoned it. When Sukuna called Nue into action, this Shikigami was massive. It was so huge that the buildings it perched on looked like little boxes. While Megumi's Nue might just paralyze or shock you with its purple lightning, Sukuna's version of Nue unleashes a lightning that resembles a storm that can hit multiple targets at the same time. Next up, the Great Serpent, also known as Orochi. This massive snake Shikigami can be quickly summoned into action by the user forming a snake head shape with their fingers. What makes this Shikigami very useful is that it's perfect for surprise attacks, swiftly attacking and ensnaring its targets. Orochi proved this when it was used to save Nobara Kogisaki from large curses in chapter 7. During this intense moment, the Great Serpent attacked a dangerous oversized fungus by biting it easily. However, Orochi's highlights came during Megumi's battle against Sukuna. The Great Serpent wrapped around Sukuna, lifting him up high and temporarily restraining him. This gave Megumi's other Shikigami, Nue, a chance to hit Sukuna several times. But Sukuna was way too strong and broke free by ripping the Great Serpent to pieces, ensuring Megumi couldn't summon it again. But when Megumi became Sukuna's vessel, Sukuna combined Orochi with another Shikigami, one of which is Round Deer. a healing Shikigami with a nasty after effect on cursed spirits. Its unique ability to release positive energy from the reverse curse technique allows the user to counter the curse energy of the enemy and heal injuries sustained during fights. So round here is like having your all-in-one support Shikigami. It provides resistance and healing. Honestly, that's kind of cheating right there. I'm calling it. The Shikigami first appeared when Sukuna summoned it against Yorozu in chapter 218. The round deer countered the curse technique within Yoro's liquid metal, completely neutralizing the curse energy. Round deer also healed the injuries Sukuna suffered during battle. Round deer and its abilities were again shown when Sukuna used totality to merge multiple shadows to form the humanoid Shikigami, Agito. Round deer might lack offensive powers, but its ability to counter curse techniques and heal injuries can really frustrate the enemy. I mean, think about it. Isn't it annoying to fight something or someone that not only blocks your spells but also heals any damage as soon as you inflict it? Basically, this Shikigami might not actually be good for combat, since we've never seen the round deer fight in the first place. Next, Tiger Funeral, also known as Mourning Tiger, hasn't been shown in Jujutsu Kaisen yet. It was only mentioned by Gojo Satoru during his battle with merged beast Agito, which is a combination of multiple Shikigami that also had the power of Tiger Funeral. However, according to the subreddit, if we guess its powers from its name, Tiger Funeral probably has amazing speed and it's very strong. Much like an actual tiger, it might have been one of Megumi's best Shikigami for powerful attacks, potentially the strongest or second only to Divine Dog Totality. But what if it had more special skills? Imagine if Tiger Funeral could hide or blend in with its surroundings for stealth attacks, just like a real tiger hiding in tall grass before it pounces. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. There's a theory that Tiger Funeral might even have a humanoid form, allowing it to stand on two legs and use its arms for close combat, similar to Agito. Now the theory sounds interesting, but the thing is we don't have much proof. Besides, there are Shikigami that are way stronger than Tiger Funeral, and I'm gonna prove it. Like Piercing Ox. Piercing Ox is also one of the offensive Shikigami from Megumi's 10 Shadows technique. It can be summoned by creating a shadow puppet, imitating the head of an ox. Piercing Ox charges from a distance and rams the enemy with its head and horns, with its tough and massive build and its strong horns coming right at its target. Though Piercing Ox's attack can only travel along a straight line, it becomes more powerful as the length of the charge increases. This was seen in chapter 218 when Sukuna used the 10 Shadows technique in his fight with Yorozu. As soon as it was summoned, it charged directly at the enemy. It even showed its toughness and durability when it was blocked and thrown away by Yorozu in its first attack. It quickly went back to its feet and attacked again, and this time with a longer charge. With that second attack, Piercing Ox was able to break a part of Yorozu's ultimate insect armor. Take note, cuters, this wasn't just a simple armor, but an armor made of liquid metal from Yorozu's construction technique. Now, the Shikigami may have strong destructive powers, but its attack is of course very predictable. I mean, god dang, it's a straight line. Especially if the enemy's fast enough. They can easily move out of the way or avoid the incoming attack. Yet this weakness can also be used as an advantage. You see, it may be predictable, but the sheer force can be so intimidating. That's why it can be used as a decoy for a setup attack when the enemy focuses on dodging this Shikigami. Now, the thing is, can a user summon Piercing Ox with other Shikigami? Like when Megumi summoned Rabbit Escape and Max Elephant at the same time, during his fight with Reggie Star in the Calling Games. Or maybe it's about how much curse energy the user has when summoning multiple Shikigami at once. Also, since Piercing Ox is tough and deadly, it'd be perfect to combine it with other Shikigami to create another Totality merged beast. Just imagine fusing it with Divine Dog Totality or Max Elephant. Now that Shikigami would be broken. Next up, Max Elephant. Its strength in battle is typically focused on crushing enemies with its enormous body and weight. Aside from this, it also has the ability to summon a torrent of water strong enough to break through walls. Summoning Max Elephant consumes a lot of curse energy due to its strength and abilities. That's why Megumi typically uses it alone and develops different strategies to maximize its effectiveness. Do you guys remember when Megumi's fight with Norotoshi during the Spirit Bash race competition? During the fight, Megumi first used one of the toads to distract Norotoshi. This gave Megumi enough time to summon Max Elephant. Max Elephant then hit Norotoshi with a gush of water, enabling Megumi to follow up with a finishing attack using Nue. We've also seen just how destructive Max Elephant can be, both in battle against Awasaka in Shibuya and during the Calling Games against Reggie Star. During the Shibuya incident, when Yuji and Megumi were fighting Awasaka, Megumi used Max Elephant to counter Awasaka's curse technique. And in his fight in the calling game against Reggie, within his domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden, Megumi replicated Max Elephant's realistic weight in his domain, pushing Reggie down into the shadows of the domain. Even Sukuna tapped into the crushing power of this Shikigami and used it against Yorozu. When Sukuna summoned Max Elephant, it appeared even more terrifying with its longer horns and bigger shrunken body. Sukuna was also able to copy piercing blood with Max Elephant's power, compressing the water it shoots, similar to blood manipulation technique. So, this Shikigami has earned a higher rank due to its strength and abilities. Besides its massive body and strength, it can also blast enemies with strong currents of water. Next on the list is Divine Dog Totality, aka Gyokuken Kon. When Megumi's white dog was destroyed by a finger bearer, at the Eishu Juvenile Center, the white dog's power was transferred to its twin. With this fusion, the power of this werewolf-like Shikigami became much stronger. We saw the true potential of this Shikigami in chapter 47, when Megumi summoned it against one of the toughest special grade curses, Hanami. Divine Dog Totality managed to damage Hanami, something Megumi, Kamo, and Inumaki couldn't achieve even with their combined attacks. Also, when Megumi first activated his domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden, the Divine Dog Totality could even hide in the enemy's shadows. With this technique, Megumi managed to exorcise the cursed spirit of Yasuhachi Bridge with just a single blow. During the calling game in Tokyo's #1 colony, Megumi defeated Reggie Star as the Divine Dog bit off a huge chunk of Reggie's flesh. While Divine Dog Totality was strong and reliable under Megumi, it looked much stronger and more monstrous when Sukuna summoned it against Yorozu. Next up, Garuda. Yuki Tsukumo's Garuda is a long-ass Shikigami that looks like a floating spinal column of your great-grandpa. Yuki's curse technique, Star Rage, enables its target to gain virtual mass. But the thing is, Yuki can only use her curse technique on herself and her Shikigami. With Star Rage, Yuki was able to use Garuda as a curse tool. Back when Yuki chose to stay and guard Tengen with Chozo, we saw the abilities of Yuki and her Shikigami when she fought Kenjaku. In chapter 205, as soon as their fight broke out, Kenjaku summoned an Asian divine curse, Ganesha. Even from the appearance of this massive special grade curse spirit, you can see that this beast possessed tremendous power. Of course, it is a Hindu god with tremendous power, but Yuki didn't hesitate and charged towards Ganesha as she transformed Garuda into a ball of mass. She threw Garuda into the air and delivered a powerful kick. With that single blow, Garuda easily destroyed the massive beast. Yuki continued her attacks on the surprised Kenjaku and sent him flying through an empty barrier with his arms broken. At that moment, Kenjaku realized that this shawty was a baddie, a bad pain in the ass. In this fight, we've seen that Garuda served both as a support curse tool and as a dynamic aid in Yuki's offense and defense. This may be a simple Shikigami, but the support it provided during battle is truly extraordinary. The curse technique greatly helped Garuda in attacking enemies and restraining them with its long, whip-like body. Now I know some of you really want to see more of Garuda and Yuki in action, but that ain't gonna happen because Geigi loves killing everybody. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, do you think they would have been more useful if Tengen hadn't asked them to guard him? Did you know that there are also Shikigami that can only be seen inside a domain expansion? Like the next one, Dagon's Death Swarm. Inside Dagon's domain expansion, Horizon of the Captivating Skanda, Dagon can summon endless man-eating fish Shikigami that instantly devour their targets. But here's the crazy part. Since this Shikigami's inside the domain, it's also affected by the domain expansion's guaranteed hit condition. This made even a grade 1 and a special grade 1 sorcerer, Nanami and Naobito, struggle. The attacks from the man-eating fish Shikigami only appear just before they hit the sorcerers, making dodging or counter attacks almost impossible. Nanami was easily overrun by these summons. Naobito, on the other hand, managed to withstand the surge of attacks by using an anti-domain technique called Falling Blossom Emotion. Though they both survived the swarm, Nanami was heavily injured, and Naobito even lost an arm. Luckily, Megumi was able to enter the domain expansion. The fight turned into a battle of two domains when Megumi cast his own and denied the guaranteed hit condition of Dagon's domain. But that didn't stop Dagon. I mean, he can summon endless fish Shikigami that devour any target, you know? It's like he can make his own piranha movie. That domain was like a water park of death. The special case of Shikigami inside the guaranteed hit domain expansion almost killed Nanami and his team. But the tide turned when the resurrected Toji entered the domain. I mean, if Toji hadn't shown up, Nanami and the group would have been potentially completely destroyed by Dagon. Next, Judge Man. Judge Man is another special case Shikigami that is related to Hiromi Higuruma's domain expansion, Deadly Sentencing. This Shikigami has a black body and a face that kinda looks like a mask, with eyes completely shut with stitches, almost like a Jigsaw and a Bleach Hollow crossover. Judge Man also holds a scale in each of its arms, similar to Lady Justice, who symbolizes blind justice. So, to understand how Judge Man's deadly sentencing works, you need to be well versed in the laws of all the 50 different states of the United States of America. I'm kidding. As its name suggests, deadly sentencing mimics a real-life courtroom hearing, with Judge Man acting as the judge between Higuruma and his opponent. Think of it as the JJK version of Ace Attorney. Deadly sentencing is a unique domain expansion where violence is not allowed, and a trial decides the outcome of the battle. Since there is no violence, the domain doesn't have a guaranteed hit attack. Instead, it forces everyone inside to follow the rules within the technique. Judge Man is also unique, since it has no offensive power, but it can still let its user instantly kill any target with just one hit. It was also shown that this Shikigami has a personality and is capable of emotions. Like when Yuji was subjected to deadly sentencing, Judge Man was so pissed when Yuji didn't deny his crime during the Shibuya incident. Inside the domain, Judge Man knows everything about the opponent, but this information isn't shared with the caster, Higuruma. Judge Man announces the charges against the defendant and presents the prosecution with evidence for deliberation. Both Higuruma and the defendant exchange arguments, and Judge Man delivers the verdict according to the arguments presented. Now, moving on to when the enemy is found guilty, Judge Man can either charge the defendant with confiscation, where the curse technique or a curse tool of the opponent is taken away. If the user doesn't have a technique or tool, by default, their curse energy will be taken away. The other punishment it delivers is called death penalty. When Judge Man gives this verdict, Higuruma will have access to the executioner sword, and a single hit from this sword means death. So basically, Judge Man and the domain deadly sentencing coexist with each other. Judge Man has an absolute control on the domain that even Sukuna cannot bypass. Now, it's clear that Judge Man has no direct offensive power, but the consequences in the verdict given can totally turn any battle around. It takes away techniques, tools, and even provides an insta-kill weapon. Now, going back to the 10 Shadows technique, we have Nue, Totality, Merged Beast, Agito. During the battle at Shinjuku, after Mahoraga adapted to Gojo's Infinity, Sukuna combined Nue, Great Serpent, Tiger Funeral, and Round Ear to create this Snoo Agito. This helped Sukuna in his fight against Satoru. Agito is a tough Shikigami to battle because it can use reverse curse technique to heal. For example, when Gojo hit it with a black flash, Agito quickly healed. Even when Gojo grabbed Agito's tail and threw it hard enough to rip it off, Agito easily regenerated its tail. Since Agito had such a crazy healing ability that it could heal not only itself but also Sukuna, Gojo made it a priority to destroy the Shikigami. Plus, Agito can also use Nue's electricity, like when it tried to strike Gojo with an electrified fist. However, that attack didn't work against our sensei, thanks to his infinity and all. Gojo countered with an attack called Blue and struck Agito. Gojo then used maximum output Blue and instantly destroyed Agito. Now, because Gojo defeated Agito in just 2 chapters, my guy, you might think that the Shikigami is weak, but that's not the case. Agito was simply unlucky to face someone as strong as Gojo. This means if Agito were to fight any other sorcerer, the Shikigami would kill them. But Merge Beast Agito is nothing compared to the general Mahoraga, which is arguably the strongest Shikigami in the 10 Shadows technique. No, inarguably the strongest Shikigami. It even requires an incantation, not just a shadow puppet to summon Mahoraga. The user can conjure Mahoraga with the incantation. With this treasure, I summon. Kind of like informing your enemy, run. Mahoraga is a ripped-ass Shikigami. The bro has 4 wings instead of eyes, and a tail at the back of its head. Yup, the Shikigami could pass as something straight out of a Lovecraftian novel. Mahoraga also had the Sword of Extermination attached to its forearm, a sword imbued with positive energy, making it perfect against other cursed spirits. In the history of the 10 Shadows, no one in the Zenin clan has been able to tame Mahoraga. This feat was only achieved by Sukuna, who defeated Mahoraga after Megumi summoned it as a last resort during his battle with Haruta Shigemo in Shibuya. When Sukuna took over Megumi's body, he acquired the 10 Shadows technique, gaining this power to summon the Divine General. How? Because you must defeat or exercise a Shikigami in a ritual to use them, but you can summon them anytime you want to exercise them. Even though Mahoraga is very strong, its most notable feature is the 8-handled wheel floating above its head. This wheel helps Mahoraga to adapt to any phenomena or attack. With a full turn of the wheel, Mahoraga can adapt to the opponent's attacks. It has even easily adapted to Gojo's Unlimited Void. So how exactly does Mahoraga adapt using its wheel? As Gojo figured out, Mahoraga starts by adapting to an attack it has previously received. After a certain amount of time, the wheel turns and the adaptation is completed. Even after the process is completed, it continues to analyze the situation so that aside from dodging attacks, it could also perform a counterattack. That is why to defeat Mahoraga, new single attacks should be used to take it down. Like when Sukuna defeated Mahoraga during the Shibuya incident, Mahoraga had easily adapted to Sukuna's slashes, which is why Sukuna was forced to use Fuga and incinerate Mahoraga and completely defeat the Shikigami before he could even adapt to Sukuna's technique. Now, after Mahoraga completed the adaptation to Gojo's Infinity, Mahoraga was able to use the Blade of Extermination to cut through Gojo's chest. Then, just a few chapters later, Gojo managed to destroy Mahoraga. You might think with the strongest Shikigami gone, there'd be no problems. Wrong. Keep in mind that once a Shikigami is destroyed, its power is passed on to the remaining Shikigami. This means that with most of the Shikigami in the 10 shadows gone, a more powerful shadow could likely emerge from this technique, potentially even stronger than Mahoraga. Even though Gojo's managed to destroy Mahoraga, Sukuna harnessed Mahoraga's adaptability to overcome Gojo's Limitless, leading to Sukuna's dismantle to cut through space and eventually kill Gojo. And if Megumi stops being a crybaby, he could potentially use the 10 shadows to revive the dead.